Welcome, my friends. And it looks like the anti-woke are kind of winning when it comes to Veilguard. And maybe some of these journalists just don't know how to handle the backlash, and they are acting like a bunch of crybabies. So let's check it out and find out what's going on. Let's do it.
What's up, it's Endymion, and we're now reaching levels of cope from legacy media when it comes to the situation surrounding Dragon Age Veilguard that I need more eyes on. Beyond this, we have updates on a Mass Effect live-action show happening for sure this time,
Oh, wow.
and how these groups are demanding
Nice.
that we accept their ideologies despite how resoundingly they're being rejected at every turn.
That's not nice.
Also, the Mass Effect board game has bent the knee to pressure, and sales number updates have come in from some sources and much more. So let's all let our nuts hang and get into it, fellas. Firstly, Veilguard is not doing hot at all.
That's funny.
In fact, it seems as more time goes by that the game is having a shorter shelf life than your
Wow.
average yogurt at the grocery store. There's already proof showing that Veilguard's trade-in value at places like GameStop is already cratering.
Wow.
The game only holds around a $25 trade-in value about a week since launch, which is horrific to say the least for BioWare especially. People waited 10 years and they got a game that doesn't even give the fandom what they wanted with Solus and the whole Dreadwolf thing. Instead, the game is just you running around through magical mirrors, solving problems in various parts of Northern Thetis, in what can only be described as a retrofitted multiplayer map mode made into a single-player game. Because if you didn't know already, Veilguard was originally a live service multiplayer game, and trust me, it shows. The way that items sparkle when you pick them up, and the brain-dead easy UI when it comes to upgrades. The plentiful of cosmetics that were definitely meant to be paid microtransactions at one point, yeah, it's all there. And now the game is worth less than half of what it cost already when you trade it in, which is not good at all for BioWare. There's other reports from other people like Natalia here, who, if you remember, she got a code for the game early by lying to a BioWare PR person by telling them that she was non-binary, which, that is real by the way, that actually happened. She's now saying that around 30% of Xbox sales for Veilguard have been refunded. I can't confirm that, but I did want to bring attention to it nevertheless. But I am solid on other information that Veilguard has failed to even reach 500,000 sales in 1 week since release, which is incredibly awful when other much more niche titles are able to secure over 1 million in sales in just 24 hours.
And games that didn't take 10 years to create. So, man, BioWare has an epic fail on their hands.
Metaphor, or even Persona 3 Reload. It's just not looking good for this game or BioWare in general, and the more that I play it, I'm currently on chapter 11, the game is just so mismanaged with its story and pacing, man. Apparently, once I reach the end of chapter 11, I hit a point of no return, and then chapters 12 to 14 are this one giant long sequence that I'm told is the best part of the game because everything finally comes together. And I don't want to say that that's true yet because I'm not there yet, but I hope so. Because what I've played so far is so lopsided, man, it's genuinely frustrating. I managed to beat Harding and Lucanus' questlines, and I will say credit where it's due that Harding's quest was actually good. She is easily one of the most interesting characters in the game, which is not surprising considering that she was originally from Dragon Age Inquisition. So of course one of the best characters isn't even a new one, but the lore implications of her questline, they were actually great. I do enjoy Harding as a character, even though at times she does get cringy with her dialogue, but that's more current BioWare's fault than Inquisition's.
Yeah.
Like at one point, Harding is planning a 2-day camping trip for other members of the Veilguard to go on, and it just makes zero sense. Like there's literal elven gods out here turning things into a new blight. People are dying all over and the world is on fire. Yet you apparently have the time to go camping. It's this very weird dichotomy where the tone of this game is just all over the place almost all of the time. It should be serious, but 80% of the time you're playing this game, these characters act like everything is a whimsical joke.
Right.
And I'm starting to reach my breaking point, to be real with you. And at this point, the combat is more just a chore that I have to get through to get things done. as I slowly but surely max out every faction to ensure that I 100% this game before I'm done with it,
Wow.
like I do most other games. I've already
That's so
done, I
crazy.
think, 3 factions to max already. But
I mean, good for him, but I just, oh, that blows my mind that people, do the 100%. I mean, kudos for him.
man, I would be lying if I said that this game wasn't testing me, dude. I had to respec my Rook to different abilities, not because the combat is hard, but simply because I got bored using the same moves over and over again. So I'm literally just respecking so I can use other abilities so I can fight off the boredom. It's not a good look. You spend the first 70% of this game, maybe even 80%, fighting just Gillening, that weird tentacle elven god lady who is just generic and lame. And then later on, the other elven god, Elgernon, shows up, who I do find more interesting at least, but he's showing up far too late into the story at this point. And the game also keeps ensuring that every single main villain, I kid you not, is either a white man or a white woman. Lucanus' entire companion quest, by the way, is just butt cheeks. And it also teases early on that a woman named Zara is his main villain. I figured, oh, Zara. Isn't that a name that a white woman should not have?
Right.
But just kidding. Of course it is a white woman, who also ends up looking like a discounted Orin from Baldur's Gate 3, blood clothing and all. Then it turns out Zara isn't the main villain. Spoiler alert. In fact, it was a white man all along pulling the strings.
Right.
Wow. Amazing. Who could have guessed? This is the entire game, by the way. It's all like this. Even Nev Gallus' main villain is some generic white old lady named Ayla. Like, they couldn't make a single main villain anything but a white person in this game. Good God, I am glad this game is failing. I just can't wait to finish it, dude, so I can finally just move on to other games that I want to play, like East Nordics, and I really want to go back and start playing more of the Castlevania Advance Collection again. But I'm glad it's failing, because this is not what I want out of Dragon Age, or Mass Effect in the future either. I hate these jokey millennial companions. I would actually compare Veilguard's cast to be a lot like Mass Effect Andromeda's, but somehow even worse, if that makes sense. Besides Harding, who's a genuine good character and isn't a new character as I already described, maybe Nev is also okay too, I guess, but everyone else is either annoying, boring, or pointless. Then, of course, the more I delve into this game's companion...
We're looking at you, Tosh.
...quest with especially Tosh, the non-binary Kunari, the stupider it gets. Case in point, Tosh sucks, man. There's an entire main mission where you gotta hunt down Gillenane's blighted dragons. BioWare released this part of the game as promotional gameplay too, so maybe you've seen it. But anyway, you need to fight these dragons, and the Grey Wardens can't do it because they suck now, I guess. Also, by the way, the Grey Wardens answer to a dwarf female warden now, because again, every single faction in this game is led by girl bosses. God, this game sucks. Anyway, Tosh is pushed to the forefront of this mission because she's the Dragon Slayer expert of the team. So she takes point and blows a horn, and, well, that's it, actually. I'm not kidding you. Tosh doesn't do anything else for the entire mission sequence that conveys why she is a dragon expert at all. And if you don't put her on your team during this point, which I didn't because Tosh sucks balls, her involvement begins and ends with her just blowing a horn. And then Rook, your character, does all the actual heavy lifting and fights the dragons, of course. Yet afterwards, when everyone is back at base, they're all congratulating Tosh, saying, wow, we couldn't have done it without you. My brothers and sisters in Christ, all Tosh did was blow a horn. Literally anyone could have done that. If you can't tell, this game just tends to go out of its way to constantly pat and legitimize Tosh on the back for being amazing, yet never once actually displaying any reason as to why Tosh should be considered amazing to begin with. It actually feels like, to be anyway, that BioWare wanted Tosh to be the breakout companion in this game. To be the Garrus Vicarian, or Morrigan if you will, but in Veilguard's terms. But all Tosh ends up being is annoying, stupid, and pointless from the moment you meet her to now. Her entire story of wanting to be non-binary is complete utter nonsense.
And should have nothing to do with anything with the story. I mean, it's so lame.
Again, the world is literally on fire. Tell me again why we should care about you wrestling with your pronouns right now. You're an adult. Start acting like one, for God's sakes. Of course, some places like the MarySue.com are openly sucking off Tosh's toes with their articles titled, This Dragon Age the Veilguard
What?
companion story ruined me in the best way. Oh god, here we go.
Oh,
The writer
jeez.
of this piece, Samantha Puck, I guess that's how you say it, whatever, spends the entire article just saying how amazing Tosh is and how them being non-binary is going to break the barriers and break the ceiling. At one point, Samantha says there's no room for interpretation with Tosh's storyline. They state that they are non-binary and that they use they-them pronouns. Rook can't reject their help or boot them from the party the way the Inquisitor could do with some companions in Inquisition. Tosh's identity and involvement in the story in Veilguard isn't optional, much like the existence of trans and non-binary people in real life.
Oh,
Yeah, and
jeez.
that's exactly why I keep saying that Veilguard is not a true role-playing game, because your decisions when it comes to these party members truly, and I mean it, do not matter whatsoever. You could actually boot quite a few of your party members if you wanted to in other Dragon Age games, because it should be up to the player, not the dev, to decide how they want to play the game. Yet here with Veilguard, you can't reject any of these party members. They have to exist and stay there. And sometimes their storylines even become main questline objectives that you need to do in order to proceed through the game. Saying that Tosh can't be rejected or Rook has no say in their identity is exactly one of the core problems with Veilguard. You have zero control over this world or these characters in any meaningful way outside of which city I guess you save in Chapter 6, and that's about it. I also know that there's one choice coming up where you can actually get a companion killed, but it's only from 2 available companions that can die. And spoiler alert, Tosh is of course not available to die at any point in this game.
Of course.
It's very clear that BioWare ensured that this character would survive this story no matter what you do, because they want Tosh to show up in future games or novels, I guess. They genuinely truly believe that Tosh is their new Garrus or Liara or Morrigan, but instead, she's one of the worst characters in the game, and audiences have clearly denied Veilguard the affirmation it and their writers so desperately crave from this. Of course, as the Mary Sue points out, Tosh was written by Trick Weeks, which I guess is the non-binary codename that Patrick Weeks uses because, I don't know, Patrick is too masculine? So naturally, Trick is a more non-binary way of saying their name, I guess, and yeah, we can all tell that someone non-binary wrote Tosh. Because just to be blunt with you guys, Tosh is annoying, is condescending to everybody around them. And they want to be the center of attention for no other reason than because they believe being non-binary somehow makes them special. And I hope Tosh was worth it to Patrick Weeks or Trick Weeks, whatever their name is, because the character has clearly cost them millions of dollars in sales and cratered the Dragon Age IP for the
look
future
at that,
again.
36.
A true role-playing game would have allowed the player to decide how to shape their world. I would be fine with Tosh wanting to be non-binary if there was the option to not make her non-binary. The same way I think the choice to keep or kick out a companion or let someone die or save them, that should all be available too. Why? Because it's a role-playing game, but it's clear that BioWare has forgotten this. And instead, they spent the better part of 10 years making a baby hand-holding simulator for adults who never wanted to emotionally grow up, but have their delusions be affirmed instead.
Man, he's so
and
harsh.
Look at what Tosh costed you. Your game can't even be traded in for $25 now. Unreal, dude. How far have we fallen as a community when it comes to BioWare?
Man.
Of course, they're still trying to save face, like how there's a Mass Effect TV show in the making at Amazon. And normally, I would be hyped, but I just can't find the strength to do that anymore. Y'all ruined Dragon Age. Why should I feel any notion of hope that you won't find a way to screw this up too? I can already tell you what they're going to do here. Let me guess. Let me just become Nostradamus for a second, if you will. Let me ponder my orb. Let me guess. So let's just start from the beginning. Okay, so Commander Shepard is going to be a woman. I think we can all agree on that. Likely a woman of color. They'll probably unironically hire the black lady from The Walking Dead that starred in Star Trek Discovery as Shepard. I would not be surprised. Even though, canonically, Commander Shepard, or male and female versions, are white people. They're on the covers of the games. Don't argue with me. Argue with BioWare. And then they'll also make Shepard diverse. Then they'll make Shepard lesbian or non-binary as well, because every single important heroic figure in media now has to not be straight, because being straight is bad and wrong think now. Then they'll make Udina a pivotal main villain because he's a white guy, and the show will just be Rings of Power Mass Effect Edition. To be honest with you, I doubt they can even pull this off, mostly because Mass Effect would be just too expensive to make in live action. I mean, Garrus and Rex alone would cost an insane amount of money to CGI in a show like this. Could it happen? Sure, I guess. But do I think they'll do it justice? Of course not. I have no reason to believe that neither Amazon or BioWare are interested in giving players what they want anymore. It's why I think the new era of games and media in general is just going to be remakes and remasters. And not because it's easy money, which it is by the way, but the real reason is because activists want to go back and take things that you love and then fix them in their own image to make them into how they want these stories to be perceived. The fact that stuff like Dead Rising 1's remaster went ahead and removed things like the erotic point system from the game, and then they even turned a villain from Asian to a white guy because of the modern audience, that's just one example, but it keeps happening. And remember, there's that rumor that the God of War games are getting remastered for modern platforms will be announced next year. That's a rumor, by the way. But anyway, how much you want to bet that the sex minigame in those games will be gone? I would be genuinely surprised if they are still left in those games. Even the Witcher 1 remake already confirmed that they're removing the woman trading card minigame system because the game is being made for a modern audience. And now apparently from that Park Place, they're also saying that the Batman Arkham Asylum games are being remade too, like the first one by Rocksteady. Are you kidding me? Why? They're going to ruin it. They're just going to put gender-neutiral bathrooms in Arkham Asylum. They're going to make Poison Ivy look like a goddamn man or something. They're just doing this to ruin the things you love, and it makes me so sad, dude. So tell me why I should have any faith to believe that current BioWare, which is a woke cult by the way, is going to actually give me and the fans the true Mass Effect experience with a white Commander Shepard who's male, leading, who isn't gay but is also straight. If they're smart and want to make money, they'll do exactly that, but let's be real. Do we think this will happen? Of course not. It's obvious that BioWare is only interested in catering to their very small group of yes men when it comes to what they do now. For example, Inverse.com had their article titled, "The Veilguard makes me feel seen as a trans player, but blockbuster games can do better." Of course, it's never enough, even when you cater to a specific group as much as you do here. Here's some of what they said, and I quote, "Dragon Age The Veilguard's approach to trans characters feels like a step forward, but the mere fact that it does highlights just how low the bar is. The Veilguard's options for playing the protagonist Rook as a trans character begins at the creation screen. There are no male or female body types. Regardless of your character's appearance, you choose their gender, identity, and pronouns separately, though I haven't seen anywhere in the game where your choice of gender identity actually comes into play. Otherwise, the only nod to trans identity is the ability to add top surgery scars to your character. All I can really say about this is that it's fine. There are frankly all options that should be standard in character creators by this point.
What?
I'd rather see them included than not, but it doesn't do anything to make me feel more seen as a trans person."
Oh my
The
gosh.
Veilguard slowly reveals its actually interesting take on trans characters.
What do
shortly
they
after
want?
The game begins in earnest. In an early scene, Rook unpacks their belongings, including a mirror given to them by returning character Varric. Upon pulling out the mirror, you choose from a menu of options with some choices that establish Rook is trans. The inclusion of these options sets the Veilguard apart from other games, though I'd argue again that being able to make a canonically trans character should be the bare minimum for a role-playing game. What the Veilguard gets right isn't just that the scene exists, but that it makes room for different trans experiences without exaggeration. It's the most I've ever felt my own experience of transition reflected back at me in a blockbuster game. It even helps to know that other versions of that scene exist, which keeps the Veilguard from implying that every trans person's experience gender the same way. Tasha's story is all about their gender and coming out to their mother. The coming out story is the most common story we have about trans people. Probably because it's inherently dramatic, which makes it easier for a cisgender audience to understand and empathize with. There's nothing wrong with how the Veilguard tells the story, but the fact that it chooses such low-hanging fruit does say something about its ambitions for its trans characters. Keeping most of Rook's options for discussing gender identity in the confine of Tasha's story also feels like the game corralling its gender feelings into one corner, rather than having them feed into every aspect of Rook's story as they would have in a more authentic trans portrayal, end quote. So this writer for Inverse admits that even though BioWare catered to them so openly and heavily, that even then what BioWare has done here for them, it still isn't enough, and in fact they always demand more.
Right.
This is the problem with the whole modern audience shtick. You can't reasonably cater to everyone 100%. It's impossible.
No.
It's why we have genres and the like. But the fact that BioWare went out of their way to remove body types, give trans identity information, surgery scars,
which
and
is
even
ridiculous.
made a whole companion whose entire story is about something that is so small in the grand scheme of what's going on in the world, it proves all of this. The game was not made for BioWare fans. It was not made for the general paying audience either, clearly. This game was made for a small section of the world, and the sales figure...
It's like 1% or something I heard, like maybe even less than 1%. And they're just destroying whole industries and companies just to cater to 1%. It where's the logic in that?
Refunds, and player counts all reflect this. Dragon Age used to be the darker fantasy version of Baldur's Gate. After all, that's why Dragon Age was created in the first place.
Yep.
BioWare, back in their prime, they made the Baldur's Gate games. Then they obviously didn't want to have to pay licensing fees to Wizards of the Coast. So they instead made their own version of Baldur's Gate, hence why Dragon Age exists, the more you know. And it's the same reason why Mass Effect was originally a sequel to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, but clearly Lucasfilm wasn't interested. So BioWare took their ideas and then made their own Star Wars instead, and the rest is history.
I actually didn't know that. That's very interesting.
But it just seems like the current BioWare, which is not the BioWare I grew up with, is now more concerned with getting affirmation from games journalists than making commercially successful products. As I was told by a source recently, EA is still deciding what to do internally about BioWare right now.
How are they still deciding? Like, it should be so obvious that they need to dump this woke agenda and stop catering to the 1%.
Current trajectory is simply to allow BioWare to exist as it is until the next Mass Effect is made and shipped. And then once that comes out, the reception to that game will decide EA's actions on BioWare's future going forward. As I was told, EA doesn't care too much about BioWare either way because the studio and what they make is peanuts in terms of money and costs compared to their other cash cows over in the sports sector. But if BioWare can't strike gold with Mass Effect, as I'm told, there's a few options on the table going forward. One is obvious, which is shutting them down and it's over for BioWare. Secondly, is they might license out the IP to other studios. Or third, and this one is more interesting to me, is that Respawn might gain control over what BioWare does. Let me explain. You see, Respawn was founded by Vince Zampella, the guy who was responsible for Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. All the kill streaks, XP when you shoot somebody, you know how modern day FPS games feel and operate? That was Vince Zampella. Anyway, he left Infinity Ward and Activision, went to rival EA and opened up Respawn. The studio ended up making the Titanfall games, Apex Legends, Star Wars, Jedi Order, and Survivor. And Zampella is also currently overseeing the next Battlefield because DICE over there, they just keep screwing things up. Why this BioWare option at Respawn is so interesting is because EA clearly understands that Vince knows how to make blockbuster games that sell well and review well too. And since he proved this with Apex and Titanfall already, it's why he's overseeing Battlefield now to put it on the right track. And since Vince's team has also made the Jedi games and they're currently making the third Jedi game, it would also make sense to allow his team at Respawn to work on Mass Effect or Dragon Age in the future too. This would be great because considering what actually works post-Disney buying Star Wars, I think many would agree that the Jedi games by Respawn are shining lights of hope in the woke darkness for Star Wars fans. Honestly, I would love if the team at Respawn that did the Jedi games got their hands on Mass Effect or Dragon Age. I mean, they proved that they can make great Star Wars games. Why couldn't they do that with Dragon Age and Mass Effect? And I think it's clear that Vince is a based guy, and if he had control over these IPs, he could pick the right team to make true successor sequels to those franchises. Because there's just too much money and credibility on the line here to allow Dragon Age or Mass Effect to fail like this. And if EA must keep these IPs, it makes sense to go to their guy who knows what he's doing on what to do next year. But again, it's just a rumor I heard, so don't take it as gospel. But it's allegedly an option that is being explored by EA potentially in the next few weeks here. As I'm told, and you obviously know, the world is changing after the election. And it's very clear that being based is back on the menu as people are simply sick of woke agendas and nonsense like it.
Yeah, it's already changing. Yeah, it's incredible. Just the fact that Trump is going to be the next president, views and policies are changing for the better. Especially in New York, the mayor has just cut all of the money, the debit cards that they've been given to the illegals over the last year or so. He's like, as soon as Trump gets announced he's going to be president, all of a sudden that policy gets cut. So, and there's a lot of things going on. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Yeah. So, anyways.
Veilguard couldn't have come out at a more wrong time in terms of the cultural tonal shift of the world right now. And if EA is smart, they will want to course correct all of this nonsense because it's very obvious that none of this is going to work out for them if they continue down this road. Veilguard should have been at 4 or 5 million copies sold right now, not 400,000. You can't be spending 10 years and around $100 million plus cost for such results.
$100 million. What? Okay, well, that answers my questions because in the previous video, I was just kind of like, okay, it's taken 10 years, but how much money did they actually spend on the game? I knew it had to be tens of millions. I didn't think it was 100 million. That's getting near like a movie budget. That is insane, and that is just how is people not just getting fired left and right? The hatchet coming down on the upper management, the executive producers and whatnot on this game. It boggles the brain.
You just can't. And regardless of the representation and these journalists saying they demand more in terms of non-binary, trans, etc., the truth of the matter is simply that the market is speaking, and the market is denying that they want more of this. As I said before, the best way to go about doing this whole woke identity stuff in games is to simply do it like Baldur's Gate 3 did. And you can add all of the wokeness, I guess, that you want, but you have to, and this is important, make it a choice, not by the developers, but the players.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately it has to be the developers to create the choice, but yes, the choice needs to be there. It has to be there. You can fill a game with all the woke BS that you want, I guess, but if the player doesn't want to deal with any of that stuff and just play a good, solid game without being preached to, that then needs to be an option for the player to do. If the player doesn't want to identify as non-binary in the beginning, if there's like a character creation or whatever, you have to be able to have that as a choice. Otherwise, you're going to have the same fate as Veilguard.
If they want to see it or not. If you're unwilling to do that, too bad, your game will burn. Baldur's Gate 3 has already sold well past 10 million copies in a single year.
Wow.
And remember, Inquisition sold about 12 million, but it took them almost 10 years to accomplish what BG3 has almost done in one.
Wow.
That's a difference between respecting the player's choices and refusing to let go of the control and instead shoving agenda down the player's throat instead. Look, I don't want Dragon Age to end. I love that world too much, and every time a character I know from the past, like Morrigan, shows up in Veilguard, I'm reminded of how much I love that world and the characters in it. But every time I interact with a new Veilguard character, I'm quickly reminded how poor this new world Dragon Age lives in compared to the older one. I want my darker fantasy Baldur's Gate with blood and taboo themes back. I don't care for edgeless edgelords and non-binary companions with the depth of a puddle. It's time we make gaming great again, and it's up to BioWare and EA to either answer the call or ignore it and allow themselves to be swallowed in the tide of woke. Thankfully, the board game for Mass Effect at least will be dropping the pronoun nonsense, well, at least one version, from Park Place. Company Asmodee Czech Republic vows to remove pronouns from Czech version of Mass Effect the board game priority Hagalize. In case you forgot, Eric Lang, a designer of the Mass Effect board game, called people effing man-babies for saying pronouns in Mass Effect were stupid, which they are, by the way. Because you don't need to look at Liara to know if she's a her, because the Asari are an all-female race. You don't need to look at Commander Shepard and be told it's a he, like of course he is, look at him. Anyways, being confirmed by a brand manager at Asmodee who was involved with the Czech version of this Mass Effect game, that the pronouns will be removed from it. Here's what they said, which was translated, of course. Well, we think it's absolutely unnecessary to mention it, so there won't be any pronouns on the Czech version of the character cards. Or we won't put them there, and we'll argue with the publisher that we don't want them there. They don't make any sense at all. Well, thank God at least someone has common sense over there. Just remove pronouns from all the versions if you want to make any money off of all of this. Look, as much as I love Dragon Age, I love Mass Effect infinitely more than it, and I know way too much about both of these worlds. For God's sakes, my channel began as a lore channel for Mass Effect, in case you didn't know. I love that world, or I guess universe, galaxy, whatever, so much that it's stupid. I wear a Commander Shepard hoodie every time when I walk my dogs every day, pretty much.
Wow.
Even in my room, I have the N7 Grey Wardens and Inquisition banners hanging in my room, dude. I do not want these worlds to die, and I want them to return to prominence. So while some may say, oh, he's only talking about this to grift, no. The real grifters are the morons who co-opted these spaces to push their ideology onto others. I love these properties too much to see them die, and I said prior to Veilguard releasing that there would be no one more critical of that game and its inner workings than me. And it's not because I hate these properties, because I love them so much and I don't want them to get ruined like so many other franchises have already. Why the hell would I want Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Batman, Spider-Man, God of War, Alan Wake, and more to be ruined for money? Are you serious right now? I want to fix gaming, and I'll take all the heat that they can throw at me. I don't care who blacklists me. Who thinks that I'm evil or wants to slander my name in 10 years or 5 years, whatever it is, they're going to be thankful that I did what I did for gaming here today.
Hear, hear.
Seethe all you want, freaks. We're going to make gaming great again. And if in the meantime, I have to burn it all down like some diseased, rotten house that's full of termites to start anew, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. So thank you for watching, subscribe, have a great day, and I'll see you soon, everyone. Let's make gaming great again, and let's keep winning. I'll see you.
Yes, let's make gaming great again. we need to make a t-shirt or a hat or something. I would totally support that. That's awesome. All right. Well, hey, listen, if you enjoy my reaction, then please like, subscribe. And also, I'd like to hear you guys in the comments. So listen, I do appreciate you, and I do love you guys. And I am very happy when people come and visit the channel. And I hope you enjoy the videos. So until next time, have a great day. Stay safe. And we'll see you later. All right. Bye.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear.